All right, everybody, welcome back here to another week on the Patterson Report. I'm your host, Philly Brandon, joined as always by Ryan Prost. And off the top of the show, we usually like to dance around it a little bit. We were talking about the Hall of Fame game. We could have kind of, eased it in with that, but that would just do a disservice to the catastrophe going on over at Citizens Bank Park at the moment. And it's the Trea Turner situation. Everybody's been talking about it. Really, for most of the season, honestly, hasn't been good. A lot of people, myself included, were preaching patience, and he's going to be fine. I'll figure it out. And then this Marlins series broke it for me. I don't know if he's going to figure it out. I don't know if has like that Markel Fultz, Ben Simmons thing where in his head it's just not making sense. I will say, contrary to those two, the Marco Fultz I have no beef with. He put the work in. But people have been saying they see Trea Turner in the cages, midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., getting hacks in. I don't know how to explain the missed ground balls, but at least the guy's trying. What do you think is the answer here? Is it, do you sit him for a week, or do you send him down like you did with Bohm? They floated around the idea of having Citizens Bank Park give him a standing O, which I really like. What's your diagnosis over there?
Oh gosh, well I don't know if we're qualified to be giving out an analysis this highly, but we could certainly try. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things. You can't send a $300 million guy down to AAA. You can't do that. I mean, Bohm's different. Bohm's still on a minor contract. If you send a $300 million guy down to AAA, you might shoot his confidence forever. I mean, it already seems shot, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah,
but they tried moving him down the order. It didn't work. I think you just gotta sit him.
I agree. I don't know when you do it though. Like for me, if you were gonna sit him and let him get his head right, I would have done that on the road trip. Because sitting him at home is going to make it all the more noticeable that he's not playing. If you sit him on the road trip, Twitter sees it. People like you and I talk about it. But that's really it. If you sit him at home, it's going to create more of a buzz, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
I totally agree with you there.
I don't know when they do it. I like the idea of him getting a warm welcome back at the park, because I don't think. Like, I had no issue berating Ben Simmons because he was just kind of shaking it off and being lazy and how many assists did I have? Trea Turner's working his ass off to get right, so I don't think more tough love is the answer. I think it is a warm reception. I think, we try the Alec Bohm situation where, I fucking hate this place. He apologized, standing ovation. He's been a different guy ever since. It's worth a shot, right?
I mean, anything's worth a shot at this rate because if he gets on track, we're having a totally different conversation right now. We're talking about, the Phillies being a lock for the postseason, maybe trying to catch the Braves. But here we are.
If he's even decent, dude, this team is. If let's say Trea Turner has an average season, he hits over 250, an OPS up closer to high 7, low 800s. I don't care about the RBIs. I don't care about any of that. Just get on base. This is probably the top wild card team in the NL. If Trea Turner is at least passable. Now, look, that's not to say Nick Castellanos hasn't gone cold from time to time. Kyle Schwarber's hitting for the worst average, in several years, possibly his career. I have to look at the numbers. Nola hasn't been an ace. Wheeler's been up and down. There's a lot of guys that are culpable, but your $300 man is unplayable at the moment. And it leads people like me to look at that Gene Segura contract and go, man, I'm not saying we didn't need another star. We did. But it makes you question whether a star shortstop was where you had to go get that guy. Because Gene hit 280 consistently. Great on defense, great locker room guy. I would have almost liked to have seen that crazy money try to pull Ohtani away from LA or go get, maybe a stud first baseman who can hit for average and power like Goldschmidt. I don't know, but maybe it wasn't Trea Turner.
Looking at it, we knew the contract was going to get bad eventually. I just didn't think it was going to be this quick.
No, I thought we'd get 5 seasons where it felt like I figured up until his age 35 season, maybe moving to second base, whatever. I figured he would have been a weapon for 5 years of that contract, and then you eat it towards the end, and that's just the cost of doing business. But if he's this bad this early, we might be in for a Tobias Harris like ride.
I can't even fathom that. It hurts too because like Bohm and Stott are doing they're so well this season. Like it's just I don't know.
And that brings us to our next topic here is, you mentioned Bohm. I think Bohm is, the most consistent player on this team right now. Bryce Harper's hitting for a great average. Obviously Bryce is elite. Nick Castellanos had a bounce back season. But Bohm and Bryson Stott, 1A, 1B, I guess, Bohm and Stott. But every time you need him, he gets the big hit. Same with Bryson Stott. Brandon Marsh the other night, although it was in vain, he had that huge 2-run home run. Garrett Stubbs has played really well behind the plate at times. Where would this team be if not for the Phillies daycare? If not for, let's call it Bohm, Stott, and Marsh?
We'd be down near the gutter because we lost Bryce Harper for so long. I mean, Castellanos went cold. He was having a great season. Like we'd be below the. Are we still below the Marlins? Or we're above them now?
We're a game and a half up on the Marlins after taking 3/4 of the series.
We'd easily be behind them, and we'd probably be down a little further. I wouldn't say below the Mets and the Nationals because they're a whole nother level of terrible. But we would be on the outside of the wild card picture, looking in pretty handily.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think those two guys are worth 8 or 9 wins. So I think we wind up, a club that's at or slightly below 500 for the most part. Because they look at the rest of the roster and there's nobody who can fill that void. I mean, Edmundo Sosa, who was, such a revelation last year on a guy that you didn't expect much out of. And, he was a defensive wizard last year. I don't know where that went. And he had some, key hits in the playoffs. He hasn't been the same guy this year, so you can't really interchange he and Stott. Obviously, Reese getting hurt, having to move Bohm over to first at times. I mean, those two guys are the reason that we have. I'm not going to say hope because we should get into the playoffs. I think we're 70% likely to get in, but without those two guys, we're distantly outside looking in, and I think people need to start talking about them as less as the Phillies daycare and like a novelty, and more of these are two of the stars on this star-studded roster.
Mm-hmm. It's just I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with this team. Looking at it, like Trea Turner just throws everything out of whack.
He does. It does because last year's team less talented, but everybody got hot in the playoffs, and Gene Segura stepped up huge. Nola became an ace. Wheeler was an ace all season. Like you just had guys stepping up. And it seems like this year, when guys have had the chance to step up outside of Marsh, Bohm, Stott, Taijuan Walker's been phenomenal. But outside of those guys, no one stepped up. So I don't know. That was just such a big part of that playoff run. So if you subtract that, this team might win the wild card round. Maybe.
I'll always believe till they give me a reason to stop believing. So
we're slotted against San Francisco at the moment, which the Giants don't terrify me. That's a wild card series. I'd like to think we win. And look, they could turn it around. Remember, this team fell apart in August last year. And we were like, no, they fell apart in September. My apologies. And we were like, holy shit, they're going to miss it. Remember, they got in with 7 days left in the season. They got in the playoffs. And they went on a run. So they could still get hot. It's just the team looks different than it
did. It feels different. But who knows? We'll get to that wild card series and they'll win in convincing fashion somehow. And then they'll go back to the bank and we'll just do it all over again. So,
yeah, we'll do it the hard way. Before we get off the Phillies, you're a big draft, trade deadline, kind of guy, analyzing all the moves. How did you feel about Dombrowski's trade deadline, given the state of the Phillies?
I'd give him like a C+ kind of deal.
That's what MLB.com gave him too.
Well, I didn't look at MLB.com's grade, so I'm not copying or anything.
Okay.
I just feel like it didn't move the needle, and it was also kind of expensive. I would be willing to go B minus considering the prospect was blocked forever at this point with Stott and Bowman. So I'll go B minus actually.
Yeah, we're in the same ballpark where I'm not going to pretend like I'm familiar with our whole farm system. I had to look up a lot about the second baseman that we let go in the deal. And, a lot of promise. He can hit for average. He has a little bit of pop at second base, but you're right. He was never going to see the light of day because Stott's not going anywhere. Turner's on an 11-year, $300 million deal. And the way it looks, Bowman ain't going anywhere either. So he was expendable. Lorenzen was spectacular in his first start. 8 innings, 2 earned, 5 Ks. So if he can become, I think he's probably your third or fourth starter. The rest of the way. I'm as big of a Ranger supporter as there is, but he's been very up and down this season. Taijuan Walker is really the competition for 3. I think he's been great, but just being able to go 6 deep, give Nola an extra day of rest, because he clearly doesn't pitch well on short rest. And I think it was fine. I would have liked to have seen them bring in a little bit more pop in the outfield. But from what Dave Dombrowski was saying, the asking price was too high, and they wanted one of our key prospects, and it's not worth that for a rental. This team's good enough as it is. They just got to perform.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's why B minus feels perfect. C plus B minus feels perfect. Like
just enough. But another team who looks to be, from what I've heard, outperforming already lofty expectations are the Philadelphia Eagles, who broke camp this week. And everything I've heard, from various sources, whether it be ESP, whether it be, the WIP accounts, everybody who seems to be at Eagle practice, even though I despise them, Jacobs Sports Media has had some decent coverage outside of Dan Saleo, sucks. Everybody's saying that this team is light years ahead of where they expect them to be. The rookies are flying around. They look ready to make an impact. I've heard great things about Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean taking over the defense. The safety position's gotten a lot of hype. Apparently, Reed Blankenship and Sidney look really good back there. What have you been hearing? Am I on the right track here? Or are you
You're on the right track, but this is everyone's camp. It feels like, though. Like, I don't know. I did a segment today, and I don't know what to believe in training camp or not. Like, in general, like this is a thing. Like, I'm a fantasy guy, you know that. Like, back in the day, the day being like 2-3 years ago, Justin Jefferson couldn't beat out Olabisi Johnson, and like that was like the biggest thing of Vikings camp. And then, do you remember when Jamar Chase said he like didn't like the NFL footballs because there wasn't stripes on him, so it was hard to see, and he had a terrible camp. Like, I don't know what to believe anymore. The one thing that I do like is that Cam Jurgens is going to get reps at right guard. It looks like he's going to start there, and he's going to get to learn between Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson. I love that. Like,
that kid's going to be special, even more so because of the 2 mentors you're just talking about.
He's great.
I'm inclined to believe it. And I don't know why, but early on in camp, there was not I don't say negative, but there was a lot of reports that Sirianni was furious. He was unhappy with the execution. He felt like guys came in a little lackadaisical. And then the narrative turned probably in the last 3 days to, this team's really coming together. So I think there's a bit of truth to it. I think they may have genuinely come in, Super Bowl high, a little bit lazy. We're going to get back there. The fans believe they're going to get back. But the fact that coverage was negative and turned positive, I put a little bit more stock into it. The one thing I don't buy 100% is that this safety duo, and I like Blankenship an awful lot, and from everything I've heard, Sidney's going to be a very good safety. I'm not buying that these two are the world-beating safeties that they're talking about in camp. If we're being honest, a weakness on this Eagles roster this season is safety.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've heard rumors that they're quietly shopping around in the safety market, so I don't buy it either. If they're quietly shopping around, there's no way that Howie Roseman believes it, which makes me believe that the coaches don't believe it either. It kind of feels like a chain reaction kind of deal. But I want Buda Baker in Eagles green so bad.
The longer this drags out, if he's really going to put his foot down and be an issue for Arizona, the longer this drags out, one, the asking price goes down, and it looks more and more like a classic Howie deal where he goes out at the last second, takes a disgruntled star. This time it's not the Saints. We'll give him a break this offseason. But he's known for this. I've heard the same reports. I've heard he's looking for this in the safety market. I've heard a lot of people tell me don't be surprised if the Eagles don't break camp with a new linebacker. I don't view that as immediate of a need as safety. I have a lot of faith in. I think Nakobe Dean's going to take a big leap. I think Nolan Smith is a natural. I feel much safer with our linebacking core than I do with one safety who's had a couple of feel good starts and then one completely unproven safety. That's where my priority lies.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, and in the scheme of it, I mean, I'm trying to think which position's valued more. They're honestly kind of the same. It feels like a high end safety is worth probably just a little bit less than a super high end linebacker, but I'd rather pay the safety.
Me too.
Thinking with my GM cap for a second.
Yeah, I agree, especially because when you look at the reason you'd want to bring in another linebacker, it's just because the stud you have might not be ready for a couple of weeks. But you have one waiting. Like, Nolan Smith and Kobe Dean are the future of your linebacking core. With the safeties, you can't say for sure that they're the future, safety duo of the Eagles. So that seems like a more pressing fix. I realize that we're so strong at corner that you can hide that a little bit with how deep and how strong we are with, two all-pro cornerbacks. Maddox is obviously very good. I've heard great things about Keely Ringo so far, Greedy Williams. So, I'm not saying the whole defensive backfield is a weakness, but until I see, a full season out of the two in the middle, I'm a little worried.
Mm-hmm. I'm just looking at the free agent safety market next year. And, of course, Buda Baker's on there, but,
you want to get him before then.
Yeah, you want to get him before then, and I'm just not seeing any other names that, pop out to me. They're, Jeremy Chin pops out, but I think the Panthers are going to pay him because he's just that good. Carolina has so many good players that just don't get recognized because they play in Carolina, I swear, on the defensive side.
It's such a small market, and they're so routinely horrible, and they're not going to be better this year, I don't think. I mean,
Antoine Winfield Jr. maybe if Tampa thinks they're not it, maybe sneak in there. I don't know.
I mean, Tampa could have a bad enough season to where that becomes an option where they just decide to start over because they don't have an immediate answer to their quarterback problem unless Kyle Trask becomes more than what people think he's going to. I'm not real high on him personally. I know it's not an Eagles topic, but I don't think he's the heir in Tampa.
No. I agree. I didn't know Taylor Rapp got such a small contract. I remember he used to be a stud, or at least projected to be a stud. But yeah, I think Buda Baker's the clear option. Come on, Howie,
find a way. Yeah, find a way to go get him. Probably the most interesting battle, I think, in camp is in the running back room. I mean, the Eagles could really divide that room into two separate running back committees and be top 15 in the league, no matter how you break those names up. So it's a good problem to have. It's a lot of talent, but when you have a room with, you got Swift, you got Penny, you got Gainwell, you got Trey Sermon, who I admittedly forget about all the time. Not to mention you got the giant killer Boston Scott. I mean, you have 5 running backs, many of whom are RB1, RB2 on even winning teams. I mean, Boston Scott was the second running back on a Super Bowl team last year. I know in the playoffs it did shift to Gainwell a little bit more, but for most of the season it was Scott. How do you see this one shaking out?
Oh my goodness, that is a loaded question because I don't know. The vivid memory I was going to bring up a Trey Sermon. I remember he got hurt, and I was so hyped for him to play, and he was one of my biggest buys going into his rookie season for redraft because I'm he's going to win this. He's going to win this running back battle. He's going to do it. Comes out, fumbles, gets concussed first week. It just never worked out for him in San Fran. I hope it works out for him here, obviously, but I think Swift's going to be the 1, Penny's going to be the 2, and then Gainwell's going to be the 3. I think Swift
You think
just
they
has
only
so
keep
much.
3?
Oh no, I think that's the top 3. I think they keep 4.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know
So
who the fourth. Well, I don't know who's going to win the battle. It sounds like it's going to be Trea Sermon, like you were saying before the
It
show.
really
Like
does.
they're going to keep 4 though. I think.
You wonder if there's a way, because they're going to. I mean, one, they committed the highest paid guy in the room is Boston Scott because of his time in the league. You wonder if they. I think Trea Sermon has the edge right now as the 4th running back on this team. The thing that Boston Scott has going for him is the extensive comfort level with returning punts and kicks. That's worth something that, to my knowledge, Trea Sermon's never been put in a position to do that. So that could be, if there's a way Boston Scott makes this roster, it's going to be as a returner. It's not going to be as a back, I don't think.
No. Not
Which
at
is
all.
such a shame because he's so good with this. They loaded the room.
Nah, they're just remember active for 2 weeks of the year at running back position against the Giants.
Yeah,
Christmas Day. Christmas Day. He's scoring 3 times.
Yeah, he should get the start honestly against the Giants. That's just good game planning. I do I agree with your list. I think Swift has got to be the one. I think he's I was really excited for Penny, and if he's all we got, I would have still been happy.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Swift is the most dynamic guy in that backfield. He kind of reminds me of Jay Ajayi in the Super Bowl team. They actually rebuilt the Super Bowl team running back room, in my opinion. I mean, Jay Ajayi, DeAndre Swift, kind of linear. Rashad Penny, Garrett Blunt, both that third down kind of thumper, 2-3 yards when you need them. Can break one if possible.
Rashad Penny will break a lot behind that line.
Then you drop down to Gainwell. He and Corey Clement line up very similarly. I think Gainwell's a better player than Corey really ever was. But they can both beat you out of the backfield. They're both more than comfortable catching the ball out in the flat. And obviously, I mean, look, the easy one's Boston Scott and Darren Sproles because they're both, quick, tiny people. But there's a lot of parallels between that running back room and this one.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Different kind of play styles, but I still see the point. Gosh, the Hall of Fame game is just...
It's so bad.
I've been so hungry for football, and it just...
You're just watching it to watch it.
I'm watching it to watch it. You got a FanDuel lineup going. Like, it just feels good. It feels good that it's back. But anyway, like, DeAndre Swift is just so talented, and so was Rashad Penny, but they've just dealt with injuries. And, like, I'm glad we have them both because of that. So we're going to keep some running backs. Like, if we keep 3, I wouldn't believe it. I think you have to keep 4 because either of those guys can go down at any time. They've had significant injuries in the past. So,
yeah, and you don't have any guys, like you don't have anybody you can stash on practice squad. So if whoever you keep is who you're going to ride with for the season. I think if they stay healthy, the Eagles, with that rushing attack and with the offensive line, I don't think there's any reason they shouldn't have a top 3 rushing attack in football this year. It's not to mention Jalen Hurts is, he's an extremely talented passer, and I'm not trying to put him in a box because he's great in the pocket. He throws a great ball. He's smart. He's also an elite running quarterback. I mean, I'm so exhausted, especially this offseason. Where's all the Justin Fields hype coming from? He didn't show me any of that last season, and now all of a sudden, everyone is ready to anoint him the next Jalen Hurts, which is a compliment, I know. But you don't hear about Jalen. You hear, Justin Fields is going to make this jump. He's the best running quarterback in football. He's that. The last I checked, he had a full season starting for the Bears. They won 3 games.
That's just because the Bears are so bad.
They're not better.
They're not better, but it's... So this happened in Chicago a few years back. So the most handle on a MVP tickets for money, it's Justin Fields.
Yeah. Why?
I don't know.
Because I mean, I could see early on the payout would be incredible, but at this point, why are we go piling on?
I need to look up his odds. I know they weren't good, but they weren't bad per se. I'm trying to go look at the season awards.
The Bears are still going to be an abysmal team this year. Let's not kid ourselves here.
So he is 20-1 right now.
Which, look, I get is far from a lot, but that is way too high for Justin Fields.
I will take... I see Lamar Jackson and Trevor Lawrence there at 16-1. I see Jalen Hurts at 12-1. Like, there's so many better bets you can make there with those three guys. Like, come on.
There is. There is something I wanted to talk about briefly because you follow every team definitely more than our listener base, definitely more than myself. I have seen a ton of lists, and obviously everybody's talking about the NFL Top 100, which is overall just sucked this year, in my opinion. But a lot of quarterback lists and quarterback tiers and whatever consistently Justin Herbert is ahead of Jalen Hurts on almost every single one. And some Trevor Lawrence is ahead of Jalen Hurts. How do you make sense of that?
I think we talked about this a little. You can't. I mean, Herbert, sure. I mean, he's good, but like, what has he shown? Like, it's one of those things. Like, sure, he had the worst hand dealt possible last year. His coach
fell apart.
May or may not be qualified as a coach.
I was going to say gambling.
No, I can't decide that yet if he's qualified to be a coach or not. Keenan Allen got hurt. Mike Williams got hurt. Like, sure, he's great, but like, I'm not saying he's like kick him down the list all the way. I'm saying like maybe just behind Hurts or like a little after. Trevor Lawrence is kind of ridiculous though. Like, he had one good year and like he's good, but
I just somebody reposted. Someone found that it was Chris Sims' top 40 quarterback list from 2021.
I remember this one.
Yeah, Brian Coulter, noted Philadelphia sports media Twitter account, just reposted it. And man, did you look at this thing? And he got just about all of it wrong.
Except Patrick Mahomes, I'm guessing.
Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, top 2 were solid. Aaron Rodgers at 3. He had a decent 21. I mean, that's not a complete bust, but I mean, this is where it gets kind of fun. I mean, Kyler Murray, no. Dak Prescott got hurt that season, not necessarily his fault, but still. Ryan Tannehill, like,
was that the one with the ankle where he like, yeah, he was on a historic pace those first 4 games. So I wouldn't say he's necessarily wrong there because he had like 1,600 yards in like 4 games.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, he wasn't wrong. I mean, Dak got hurt, and that's not his fault. But I'm just saying the way the season like turned out.
Yeah,
I get it. I mean, it gets crazier towards the bottom because you got Ryan Tannehill ahead of the likes of Kirk Cousins, Joe Burrow. Who else is on here that had a decent season? Daniel Jones. Look, I'm not saying he's a great quarterback, but he's certainly better than Baker Mayfield was at 13. Like Cam Newton was a top 20 quarterback in his mind. It was just an embarrassment of L's, pretty much. And I don't think there's anybody less qualified to talk about football than Chris Sims outside of Dan Salea.
It's rough when you look back at some of these lists. I remember ESPN, the one guy for NBA got like accused of like changing his list after the fact. It was a draft guy. I forget who it was.
I'm not sure.
But he would moved James Harden and like Giannis up in their draft classes because like they panned out and like people go back and be like, oh, he was really right about that. No, he was just changing it after the fact.
Oh, someone found the original. Nice.
Yeah, someone caught him.
Got caught red-handed. Well, I'm going to hijack the last 2 minutes of this because I'm in the fortunate position of having a semi-professional fantasy player on this podcast, and I'm going to take advantage of that right now. Didn't have a great season last year. Just narrowly avoided the punishment, which for my league is a 5-minute stand-up comedy set at a comedy club, which is actually...
I drafted your team, didn't I?
You did.
So it's actually my fault.
We didn't play great, not going to lie to you there, but we did enough to not have to...
all the guys who stunk. Oh, my God. It was a bad year for me.
But we're back this year, and I'm going to give you another go at it.
Oh, boy.
So the rookie draft is coming up, and because I was so ass and made a early season trade when I was angry and figured my season was over, I ended up, through that trade, getting another first-round pick this year. The guy who I traded with, his team fell apart as well. So basically, long story short, I'm sitting on the 2nd and the 3rd pick in this year's Dynasty rookie draft.
I like
That's
that.
a lot of power to wield for somebody who's done minimal research. Where am I at?
So Bajan's going 1. obviously.
Yeah, not going to get him. Moving on.
This is one quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Jahmyr Gibbs is obviously, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have an absolute monster season. There's reports out of camp that he's going to be playing wide receiver. He's not going to come off the field when David Montgomery comes in. And I keep quoting this because he's my highest exposed player in best ball. So I have the most of him in all my best ball teams, which I've done way too many because he's like a third, fourth round pick. And I just think he's going to be electric. And I think it's Ben Johnson, his name, for the Lions offensive coordinator, is just so creative, and he's not gonna pull Gibbs off the field. And he was drafted 12th overall, and they said, "Hey, if we stood pat at 6 and we didn't get that offer from Arizona, we would have just took Gibbs over Bijan there anyway." So like, that's the clear. That's the clear 102. But then the next tier gets interesting at 103 because Jackson Smith and Jigba got a kind of a crowded spot with Geno Smith might not be as good. Then Quentin Johnston got the dream spot in LA with Herbert, and then Jordan Addison got another good spot there too. But I think it's either JSN or Quentin Johnston. Like, it's a coin toss. I think they're both going to be good. It's just who's going to be better quicker kind of deal.
Yeah.
But Gibbs, then one of the wide receivers. Gibbs for sure. He's so good.
And obviously if the people I'm drafting with, if they feel the same way you do and they take Gibbs at 1, the obvious next pick is Bijan if he's still there.
I would try to leverage 3 and use 2. That's what I would do. But leverage 3 for a trade. Maybe if you're not hurting for a wide receiver, unless you are. I don't know what your team is like, but
I don't honestly. Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at it since the season ended, and you drafted it, so I was never really close to my team, to be honest. Let me see. I even have the app. No, I know I still have the app. I just don't know where the hell I put it. But that would be good to know because I've done next to zero research on this.
I don't even remember. I remember I paid it for Kyle Pitts and that experiment went wrong.
Yeah, that definitely got me off on the wrong foot for sure.
I know I picked Lamar too, and Lamar, I still think Lamar's amazing. So like, it's one of those things where he just had a bad season. I think he's going to rebound. So I don't think you're going to be in contention for last this year.
Yeah, no one could have seen that Lamar season coming. Also, no one could have seen the Ravens just completely ignoring offensive talent. I mean, if you find yourself 1, contending, and 2, contending and trying out Deshaun Jackson, something's gone horribly wrong within your organization.
Definitely. It's rough.
All right. I got the app up. Let me see if I can. I just want to see who I got.
Didn't I draft Breece Hall and he tore his ACL?
Yep. Yeah, you did. Yep.
Yeah. I was looking really good though. He was really good.
Oh, that team could have been absolutely filthy. Instead
you had every break possible fall wrong for you. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm remembering some of these picks. It's coming back to me a little bit. I know I picked Elijah Moore. He's in Cleveland now. Who, God knows what he's gonna do, but
yeah, I mean, I just remember every week trying to
scrape together something.
Just living on the waiver wire, thinking, okay, he's got a weak defensive matchup. He went off last week. Maybe I can find something that's going to work. Just every week living on the edge. And look, all I cared about, I knew once Breece Hall went down, then I wasn't going to win. And then when I saw the kind of season the Ravens are having, that was just further, solidified. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to have to get up on stage and tell jokes.
I'm glad you didn't, because I would have went up there with you. I would have made a point. I would have got up there. We would have done a dual comedy session for 5 minutes. I would have earned that one.
It's actually taking place this week.
Believe it or
not. It's at they're doing it during a bachelor party. Let me see.
Yeah, I won the 101 to my home league, so I'm just taking Bijan. Everyone already knows that. I could probably already put that submit that pick in. Because you have to win the tank bowl. You have to win the bottom 4 bracket to get the 101. And of course, my team was lousy enough to get down there, but good enough to win it. So like,
do you remember what? I think it was on the Sleeper app, if I remember correctly.
No, it was NFL. It was
ESPN,
or was it Yahoo? Was it? It was one of the goofy ones that I'm not familiar with for mobile. It wasn't Sleeper. I'm sure it wasn't Sleeper. I'm sure it wasn't ESPN because I'm pretty sure.
I think you're right. I might have been Yahoo.
It was the NFL or Yahoo, honestly.
I don't even think I saved the app from season to season. I think when the season ended, I was like, all right, we're gonna put this away for a while. We'll come back to it next year. It was just too painful to look at. Man, I was hoping I was gonna be able to pull that up while I was here, but I don't know.
I wonder if I still have your. I'm gonna check.
Yeah, that's crazy. I had to have had it as an app. I mean, there's no way I was like, there's no way I was doing it any other way. But yeah, I think you're right. It was on Yahoo because
it was one of the ones that wasn't ESPN or Sleeper. You got to make the move to Sleeper. It's just so much better.
One of my other leagues uses Sleeper, and it's actually been great. Was it CBS?
It was CBS. That's what it was. That's
okay.
What it was.
Okay, because I have that app at least.
That's what it was.
Yeah, I have a league on all three apps. I have a league on Sleeper, one on ESPN, and then one on CBS. I don't mind Sleeper. It's fine.
At least you don't use MFL. It's just so old. It feels outdated.
I've never even heard of it.
It's probably for the better.
Okay. Yeah, I've always used ESPN, but we tried their dynasty setup just as a mock draft, and we hated it. So I think we pivoted away from that. We
do. So my friends don't want to play on Sleeper, but we draft on Sleeper and we export to ESPN. It's really weird.
I didn't know that's an option.
They have to. The commissioner has to hand input the teams though, so it's like
that's a bitch.
It's a pain.
Here it is, the League of Ordinary Gentlemen. That's what I was.
Oh boy, who did I draft? I need to know. I remember in some of the picks.
I wonder if I can even. I might not be. Wait, hold on. Home draft room, my team. Here we go.
Oh boy, this should be good.
Well, so this is the last lineup I trotted out there. This is the end of my season. Looked this way. I had Mike White at quarterback. Singletary was my RB1. Stevenson at 2. Metcalf stayed healthy, thank God. Garrett Wilson at wide receiver.
Did I draft Garrett Wilson or did you trade for him?
I've traded for him.
Good trade. I didn't think I drafted him.
Harrison Bryant at tight end.
Oh, jeez.
T. Higgins at my flex.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and then the bench was just I forgot Dobbins got hurt too. So Dobbins was out, Breece Hall was out, and then Jackson was ass, and then Najee Harris was in and out of the lineup.
I don't remember who I drafted at all. I only remember some names.
I know you got Metcalf. I know you got Higgins. You got Elliott, Jackson. Both running backs, Dobbins and Hall. That's all I remember for sure.
I had such higher hopes than that for some of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at this and I saw Mike White looking back at me, I was like, man, I forgot how sideways things really got that towards the end.
Wow.
But yeah, that's a good idea. I might
Jameer Gibbs no matter what, and then
I might see if I can shop that 3-pick. Because assuming people stay healthy, my run, I don't need a back, really.
There's no backs to take there, though.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'd shop the pick.
3, yeah.
Yeah.
I just it's PPR, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you take Gibbs. He's going to catch so many passes this year.
Yeah, I'll just leave him in as my flex. But as far as running backs go, I mean, Harris could be a 1. Breece Hall could be a 1. Stevenson was a certified 1 last year. So, I mean, I don't know. The need to go running back, or running back receiver, I mean, the 3-pick would probably mean more to me in a trade than it would to take somebody.
Someone's got to be high on one of those wide receivers. Someone always is. Because they get their pick, they get to start the tier, and they get, whichever one they want. So
I'll dangle the carrot, but I have hijacked this podcast for long enough. If you stayed with us through the last 10 minutes, you're a real one. If not, I don't blame you. I'm Brandon.
Man.
That's Ryan. Check out the rest of the Hall of Fame game if you're really bored. Otherwise, we will see you next week here on the Passing Report.